Hi guys, it's Miss Bridget from Pickfair, back with, I believe, part 5 of our Fablehaven read-along. Real quick, let's go over what we read previously. We finished chapter 1. Kendra and Seth are at their grandparents' house now. They've met their grandpa Sorensen. They've met their housekeeper Lena, and they've met, I guess, kind of a fellow groundskeeper, Dale, who helps out their grandpa with a lot of the chores around the giant piece of land that their grandfather owns. But we have not met their grandmother yet. And last chapter, they got to the house, they were exploring it a little bit, they got to see their room and see some of the cool toys and stuff that was inside their room. And then we kind of left off with that. That's how chapter 1 ended. It was the ride up to the grandparents' house because their parents are going on vacation, them getting there, them meeting their grandpa and his employees, seeing the house, and seeing the room where they'll be staying. Oh, and also their grandfather told them in chapter 1 that they cannot go into the woods or into the barn that's on their property. He said it's because of termites and the barn's really old and he doesn't want anything to happen to them, but those two areas are off limits. They can go pretty much everywhere else on their property. So that's the end of chapter 1, and let's get started with chapter 2. Chapter 2, Collecting Clues. The next morning, Kendra sat at breakfast across from her grandfather. A wooden clock on the wall above him read 8:43. Reflected sunlight flashed in the corner of her eye. Seth was using his butter knife to bounce sun rays. She was not sitting close enough to retaliate though. Nobody likes the sun in their eyes, Seth, Grandpa said. Seth stopped. Where's Dale? He asked. Dale and I got up a few hours ago. He's out working. I'm just here to keep you company on your first morning. Lena set a bowl in front of Seth and another in front of Kendra. What's this? Seth asked. Cream of wheat, Lena replied. Sticks to your ribs, Grandpa added. Seth probed the cream of wheat with his spoon. What's in it? Blood? Berries from the garden and homemade raspberry preserves, Lena said. Placing a platter on the table containing toast, butter, a pitcher of milk, a bowl of sugar, and a bowl of jam. Kendra sampled the cream of wheat. It was delicious. The berries and raspberry preserves sweetened it to perfection. This is good, Seth said. Just think Dad is eating snails. You kids remember the rules about the woods? Grandpa said. And to stay out of the barn, Kendra said. Good girl. There's a swimming pool out back that we got ready for you. All the chemicals are balanced and whatnot. There are gardens to explore. You can always play in your room, just respect the rules and we'll get along fine. When is Grandma coming back? Kendra asked. Grandpa glanced down at his hands. That depends on your Aunt Edna. Could be next week, could be a couple months. Good thing Grandma got over her illness, Kendra said. Illness? The one that kept her from coming to the funeral? Oh, right. Yeah, she was still a little under the weather when she left for Missouri. Grandpa was acting a little peculiar. Kendra wondered if he was uncomfortable with children. I'm sad we missed her, Kendra said. She's sorry too. Well, I better be off. Grandpa had not eaten anything. He pushed his chair back, stood up, and stepped away from the table, rubbing his palms against his jeans. If you swim, don't forget to wear sunblock. I'll see you kids later. At lunch? Seth asked. Probably not until supper. Lena will help you with anything you need. He left the room. Dressed in her swimsuit, a towel over one shoulder, Kendra stepped through the door onto the back porch. She carried a handheld mirror she had found in the nightstand by her bed. The handle was mother of pearl studded with rhinestones. The day was a bit humid, but the temperature was pleasant. She walked to the railing of the porch and gazed over the gorgeously manicured backyard. Paths of white stones meandered among flower beds, hedgerows, vegetable gardens, fruit trees, and flowering plants. Tangled grapevines curled along suspended lattices. All the flowers seemed to be in full bloom. Kendra had never seen such brilliant blossoms. Seth was already swimming. The pool had a black bottom, and it was fringed with rocks to make it seem like a pond. Kendra hurried along down the steps and started down a path toward the pool. The garden teemed with life. Hummingbirds darted along among the foliage, wings nearly invisible as they hovered. Huge bumblebees with fuzzy abdomens buzzed from one blossom to another. A stunning variety of butterflies fluttered about on tissue paper wings. Kendra passed a small, waterless fountain featuring a statue of a frog. She paused as a large butterfly alighted on the rim of an empty bird path. It had huge wings, blue, black, and violet. She had never seen a butterfly with such vivid coloring. Of course, she had never visited a world-class garden. The house was not quite a mansion, but the grounds were fit for a king. No wonder Grandpa Sorensen had so many chores. The path finally deposited Kendra at the pool. Variegated flagstones paved the poolside area. There were a few recliners and a circular table with a big umbrella. Seth leaped from a stone outcropping into the swimming pool, legs curled up, and hit the water with a big splash. Kendra set her towel and mirror on the table and grabbed a bottle of sunblock. She smeared the white cream over her face, arms, and legs until it disappeared into her skin. While Seth was swimming underwater, Kendra picked up the mirror. She angled the face so it reflected sunlight onto the water. When Seth surfaced, she made sure the bright splotch of sunlight covered his face. "Hey," he shouted, swimming away from her. She kept the glare from the mirror on the back of his head. Gripping the side of the pool, Seth turned to look at her again, throwing up a hand and squinting to ward off the light. He looked away. Kendra laughed. "Cut it out," Seth called. "You don't like that? Quit it. I won't do it anymore. Grandpa already yelled at me." Kendra set the mirror on the table. "That mirror is a lot brighter than a butter knife," she said. "I bet it already did permanent damage to your retinas." "I hope so, then I'll see you for $1 billion. Good luck. I've about 100 in the bank. Might be enough for you to buy some eye patches." He swam toward her angrily, and Kendra walked forward to the edge of the pool. As he started climbing out, she shoved him back in. She was almost a full head taller than Seth and could usually handle him in a fight, although if they ended up wrestling, he was pretty squirmy. Seth changed tactics and started splashing her, making quick scooping motions across the surface of the pool. The water felt cold, and Kendra recoiled at first, then leapt over Seth into the water. After the initial shock, she swiftly grew accustomed to the temperature, stroking over to the shallow end away from her brother. He chased her, and they ended up in a splash fight. Locking his hands, Seth swung his arms in wide arcs, skimming the top of the water. Kendra pushed at the water with both hands, a churning motion that generated smaller but more focused splashes. Soon they grew tired. It was hard to win a water fight when both participants were already soaked. "Let's have a race," Kendra suggested. They raced back and forth across the pool. First they raced freestyle, then backstroke, breaststroke, and side stroke. After they created handicaps like racing with no arms or hopping across the width of the shallow end of the pool. Kendra usually won, but Seth was faster at backstroke and some of the handicapped races. When Kendra grew bored, she got out of the pool. And that's where we'll leave it right there. We reached our 5-minute mark, and I will see you next time. Thanks, guys.